Builder Anderson is debating the purchase of a 1-acre parcel of land that is 43,560 square feet, which according to the municipal officials can be severed into 3 equal parcels following a 10% allocation for a pedestrian footpath required by the city. What will be the square footage for each parcel? Now, essentially, this question is just trying to confuse you by obfuscating, by hiding the material information of the question in a fancy situation with too much verbiage. But let's just go into the question like we're a surgeon and pick out the important pieces of information, and then we'll be able to better answer this question. So right off the bat, we see, okay, so we have one large parcel of land of 43,560 square feet. So we can write that number down, make a note of it, write it down, okay. And then what else do we see? We see, okay, they want it severed into 3 equal parcels. So we got one big one. The municipal officials want it severed into 3. Okay, so we write that down, severed into 3. And what else do we have? We say, okay, they want 10% of the total square footage allocated for a pedestrian footpath. And then the question finally says, we want to know, after you've taken away the 10%, and after you've divided the total into 3 equal parcels, what is the square footage of those individual parcels?
Okay.
So now that we have that, we say, okay, so 10% of this 43,560 needs to be removed. So there's 2 ways you could do this. One is you go 43,560 times 0.1, or 10%, and then you subtract that from 43,560. Does that make sense?
Okay. So why? Sorry, why are you timing it by 0.1?
0.1 is equivalent to 10%. So we want to obtain what 10% of the total square footage is. Why? Because the municipal officials are requiring us on our parcel of land to take 10% of it and attribute that to a footpath required by the city.
Okay.
Okay. And the way to do that calculation, you have 2 ways. Way number 1 is take 43,560 and multiply it by 0.1, and then subtract the answer you get from that calculation from the original number. In other words, find the number that equals 10% of the total square footage, and then subtract that number from the total amount to leave you with the remaining 90%. Or option number 2 is, since you already know that you're going to be left with 90%, you can just times the total times 0.9, and that will already have excluded the 10%, which you don't want, which will have to be allocated to the pedestrian footpath.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that said, you can just go 43,560 times 0.09 . And what does that give you?
Um, 39.
Yeah, 39,204.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you want this number
Divided by 3.
right. Good for you.
13,068.
Okay, so did that make sense?
Yeah.